Hello everyone and welcome to Medicated Housewife DIY, where crafting and mental health come together. My name is Sarah. Today's DIY video, we are using the Dollar Tree Tumbling Tower blocks. That's the Dollar Tree Jenga blocks. And we're using some Dollar Tree puck lights. We are making two different table lamps. They are rustic, they're modern, they're farmhouse, they're even a little glam. And you're gonna love them, so stick around. And let's go make some stuff and jump right into this. In today's DIY video, we are making two Dollar Tree Tumbling Tower Block modern and rustic DIYs. They're Jenga block lamps in two different styles. These are really simple and easy to make, but look like high-end decor. So let's get started. For the first DIY Jenga block lamp, I have a couple of boxes of the 72 block size Tumbling Tower blocks from Dollar Tree. Each lamp is going to use 80 blocks, so that's one box plus 8 blocks for each lamp. I did an instant coffee stain for these first 80 blocks, and that's just a big bowl of super strong instant coffee that I soaked the 80 blocks in for a couple of hours and then let them dry fully. I used my Gorilla Glue hot glue and glued 40 sets of 2 blocks. That equals 80. The blocks are glued end to end, as you can see here. So now I have my 40 sets of 2 blocks glued end to end, and I'm then going to use 4 of those sets to form a square. And then I glue those together. I'm gonna do this for all of the sets of 2, so I end up with 10 squares total, and those are made out of my 40 sets of 2 blocks. I have my 10 squares, and in looking at them, although they were already stained a nice warm brown color, I felt like they needed a darker shade of brown. So I used a dry coarse brush and my Waverly Antique Wax, and I painted like a rough coat of the dark brown antique wax in kind of uneven, rough brush strokes. I painted all 10 squares with the antique wax, and then I set them aside just for a couple of minutes to fully dry. When those dried, I took a look at them and I decided they could use another coat. So I wanted them like just a little bit darker. So I used the antique wax and the dry brush, and I went over all 10 squares again just to make them a little bit darker. I wanted to make these squares look distressed because this was going to be for my rustic lamp. So I had some FolkArt chalk paint in Cottage white, which I will link for you below, but I felt it was a really bright white, like just a little too bright for my distressing purposes. So I mixed it with a nice amount of the Waverly Antique Wax, and I did that until it was like a nice warm, light browny, beigey kind of color. And using another coarse bristled brush, I randomly brushed on like these messy, rough sections and patches of the chalk paint mixture. And I did this onto all 10 squares. I went over a few of them multiple times until I got like the distressed look that I was going for. It's not a science, you just have to go with how you feel. And just a note here, because I didn't mention it before, with both the antique wax and the distress chalk paint, you want to paint all sides of the square. So that's the outside and then the inside and the edges as well. So I had already made a bottom for this rustic lamp that you're looking at right here, but I am going to show you here on the second lamp bottom how I did that. I took 6 jumbo craft sticks. You can get these at Dollar Tree sometimes. I think I found these on Amazon. I will drop a link for you below. And then I hot glued the 2 craft sticks on top of them, and that's to hold them together. Then I traced one of my squares onto that, and I used a very sharp scissors to trim them to the same size as my squares. Now, I don't know about you, but I have the toughest time finding strong enough scissors. Like, I go through so many pairs of scissors because they all get really dull, like really quickly. So let me know in the comments If any of you have some really good scissors to recommend, I am always on the lookout for like the holy grail of scissors. So please let me know in the comments below if any of you have found that perfect pair of scissors that you would like to share with me. I gave the lamp bottom a quick sanding with my sanding square from Dollar Tree, and that was just to get rid of any of the sharp edges. And for this rustic lamp bottom, I went ahead and gave it 2 coats of antique wax, and I followed that up with some distressing using the light brown chalk paint mixture, the same one as I did when I was distressing the squares. Now, when I'm attaching the squares to the lamp bottom, I'm using this super glue wood glue, and that's from the hardware section of Dollar Tree. The first square that I glue is attached with the wood glue directly above the solid square bottom. So it's just gonna sit right on top of it. And you wanna give it about 30 seconds for the glue to sort of set into place. Starting on the second square, we are going to place this square and all the squares that come after it just a little bit off to the side of each corner. And it's kind of hard to explain, but if you watch exactly what I'm doing, you will get a better understanding of what I mean. You're placing each square just about a 1/4 inch, and it's not exact, it's about a 1/4 inch off and sort of above the square beneath it on the diagonal. On the third square, we are going to do the same thing, placing it offset on a diagonal. And because the wood glue takes a little longer to dry, it gives us some time to spin the lamp around and check that each corner is lined up nicely and that we don't have any big gaping openings in any of the corners and that everything just lines up. If you leave big gaps, it could leave light to shine out in a really unevenly way, and it'll make the lamp look a little bit crazy with the light shining through it. On the fourth square, we're going to continue setting it up exactly the same way as we did with the previous 3 squares. Fifth square is lined up the same way as squares 1 through 4. The 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, and finally 10th square all lined up and then glued down in the exact same way. And this is how DIY number 1 turned out. I placed a battery operated puck light on the bottom of this lamp, and I am so happy with how this rustic kind of modern farmhouse Jenga block lamp looks. I think it's super high end. The finish reminds me of something out of our Restoration Hardware living room model. I could easily see this lamp, or maybe even 2 of them, on side tables at either end of the sofa, or even in a rustic style bedroom on a bedside table. It's hard to show you the exact actual lighting they supply, but they will definitely work as accent lights in any room in your home with that rustic, modern kind of farmhouse feel. For our second tumbling tower block DIY lamp, again, we are using 80 Dollar Tree tumbling tower blocks and a Dollar Tree battery operated push or puck light. Here's a question for you. Is it a puck light or a push light? I've heard both used. Let me know in the comments what you call them. And again, we are going to hot glue 40 groups of 2 blocks, and they're glued end to end. So that's 40 groups of 2, that equals 80 blocks total. Once our 40 groups of 2 are done, we are going to take 4 groups of 2 and hot glue those together into squares. Our 40 groups will make 10 Jenga block squares. Next, I've got my 10 finished squares, and I'm using my FolkArt Treasure Gold Metallic Gold paint. I will link it for you below. And I'm painting just the inside of all the 10 squares. Now, since these squares are unstained and unpainted, I do end up using about 3 coats of the paint to completely cover the inside of the squares with an opaque metallic finish. Once the gold on the inside of the squares is dry, I need to paint the outside. Since these are again unstained and unfinished, and I need them to be a very, very intense and dark color brown, I use my Waverly Antique Wax and I apply multiple heavy all over coats on the outside and then on the sides of the squares. trying not to get any on the gold that's inside of the squares. And all in all, honestly, I think I did at least three, possibly four generous coats of the antique wax to get the really, really rich brown that I was after. So I already showed you this footage for DIY number 1, but this is how we make the bottoms for both of our lamps. This one is going to be for DIY number 2, so really quick, I'll repeat. We take 6 jumbo craft sticks, and then we hot glue 2 craft sticks across them to hold them together. And then you trace one of your Jenga block squares onto the glued craft sticks, and we cut out a craft stick square. For this DIY, I painted the top and the sides of this lamp bottom in the FolkArt Treasure Gold. That's the same color that we used to paint the inside of our squares. Now, using the Dollar Tree wood glue in the same way that we did DIY number 1, we glue the first square straight down directly over the gold bottom piece. For square number 2, the same as our first DIY, we are gluing it down with it overlapping on the diagonal by about 1/4 inch on all 4 corners. We also want to make sure that all our corners line up somewhat evenly and without any giant gaping holes in them where too much light can escape and make our lamp look kind of crazy. So we do this diagonal overlap on the corners for all the rest of the squares as well, from square number 2 through 10, shifting them around as needed to line them up properly. And this is how DIY number 2, our modern Jenga block lamp, turned out. It's so hard to do this lamp justice because you can't really see on video the richness of the gold inside when the light from the push light is shining up out of it. This lamp has some really nice minimalist but glam kind of vibes. That's why I feel it's modern and glam together. I think that this is perfect for a night table in your bedroom. And these are our 2 Tumbling Tower Jenga block lamps. They are the same, but so different. I broke out my Lazy Susan so you could really see the way the staggered lines kind of make these lamps so unique. They have a regal column kind of a feel, but then the unique shape makes them special. I love the rustic distressed kind of modern farmhouse lamp, and I think a pair of these in your living room would be spectacular. Likewise, I think a pair of the gold and brown modern minimalist glam lamps in a bedroom on a nightstand would be equally as stunning. These give off a small amount of warm glow light, so they are perfect for accent lighting, but not strong enough for reading or anything like that. They'd also make very impressive night lights in any home. These are so easy to do, and they look so high-end for lights that cost about $2 to make. Which one is your favorite? Let me know in the comments below. I hope you enjoyed this Medicated Housewife DIY, and if you did, please consider liking and subscribing for more fun, easy, and beautiful DIYs. Thank you for watching. Until next time, I'm the Medicated Housewife, and crafting is my medication.